Hold on, stand by. What's the matter, Chris?
Recording it now. So.
I'm sorry. Okay, so just so everybody understands, this meeting is recorded. So I will call the meeting of the Freetown Planning Board to order. Let the minutes reflect the members that are present. On the Zoom meeting, we have Jim Freites, we have David Cross, we have Bob Joes, we have myself, Kevin Damaris, and we have Deborah Robbins, all Planning Board members. Before we get going, I have to read this statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 19, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Freetown Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort is being made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by accessing the Zoom meeting information listed on our meeting posting for this meeting. A recording of this meeting will be made available on the town's YouTube channel, youtube.com/FreetownMA, or accessible by visiting freetownma.gov/freecam following the meeting. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Folks, this is our first foray into this, so I would just appreciate a little bit of understanding that we may run into some difficulties. I'm going to say this now, and I'll say it before every other public hearing, that everybody, when you join in, you're going to be on mute. You can unmute yourself. We can mute you at any time if there's something is people talking over each other, if something inappropriate is said or shown or whatever. And we're going to continue to move forward that way. So unless we have any questions from the planning board members, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to take the public hearing, the agenda out of order, so that we can take up some of these other things that may not take as much time while we have a quorum before a member has to leave early. So that being said, are there any questions from the board? No? Again, if you have a question, just let me know, say my name, call me a name, whatever, I will get to you. When we do any votes, we will do we have to do a roll call vote. So what does that mean? I will call on each individual member. You'll state your name and what your vote is, either yes or no or abstain or whatever. Okay, so we're going to start this. So the first thing that we have on our agenda, we're going to put as the last thing. So we're going to jump to number 2. It's a public hearing request to continue to 8/18/2020. So they do not want to be here tonight. Is that correct? They'll continue to 8/18. So I will open the public hearing for the TJA Clean Energy LLC solar facility to be located on Braley Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to 8/18/2020. It's going to be a Zoom meeting held at 4:15 p.m. Can I get a motion on that continuation, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bob Joes.
Aye.
Jim Freites.
Aye.
Chairman Damaris says aye. Debbie Robbins.
Aye.
Excellent. So the motion is to continue as passed unanimously. All right. Next on our agenda, second verse is the same as the first. I will call back to order the continuation of a public hearing for Mitch Kev Real Estate LLC for a commercial development located on Braley Road. The applicant has asked for a continuance till 8/18/2020. That being said, do I have a motion to continue the public hearing to that date and time?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bob Joes.
Aye.
Jim Freites.
Aye.
Kevin Damaris, aye. Debbie Robbins.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously to continue the public hearing. Okay, next on our agenda, item number 4, we have a continuation of public hearing. I will call that back to order. This is for an application for Farias Solar LLC. This is for solar located at High Street. Plans are dated September 6, 2019. Again, for an FYI, for everybody that's listening, both planning board members and the general public, if you go to our website, the Freetown, Mass website, freetownma.gov, go to boards and committees, under planning board, there's an item there where it says the materials for tonight's meeting. All the PDF files with the latest versions of any and all plans are there if you had any questions or you wanted to follow along. This is being represented by Steve Gioso of SciTech. Steve, you're here, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, so last we met, and again, I don't know if you're at the beginning, but we're going to stumble through this together, guys. This is our first one. So last we met, there were some outstanding issues or items that you were asked to address. I think that was really the only remaining issue. I think you've gone through your engineering review or what little you went through, and you were successful with that, is correct?
That is correct. We did have a clean review at the end of the day from your consultant. And you're right, there were a handful of small items that the board asked us to consider and also to add on to the plan, which we have done. And I also provided a summary memo to the board as well on the changes that we made. If you'd like, I can go through those. I can go through those changes if you'd like, briefly.
Yeah. Why don't you just go through how you addressed the handful of changes that we had asked you to do?
Yes. So the first one had to do with an access easement that benefits the abutter to the north of the project, and we were asked to add that information to the plan. So on sheet 1 of the drawing set, we have added a notation, and we also provided a copy to the board of the actual easement that's on record. It's kind of a blanket easement, so there's no meets and bounds description for it, but we did make note of it in the recording information directly on the plan, so that everybody who looks at the plans is aware that, in fact, there is an easement that allows the northerly abutter access through a portion of the applicant's property. The solar project doesn't interfere with those rights, and but I know the chairman and the board wanted that added, so we have put that on the plan. The second item, which is detailed on sheet 4, is we were depicting a construction fence on the south line of the access drive coming in from High Street. The board asked that we add a similar detail to the north side so that the construction activity is constrained in that strip of land that's in between the two abutters to the north and south. So we did extend that construction detail fencing all the way up the north side as well as all the way up the south side. Third item, we added a note to sheet 2 requiring a pre-construction meeting. Again, the board, I think, rightfully wants to have the ability to meet with the contractor before construction, and we wanted to make sure that that's on the plan so that the contractor picking up and bidding the drawing knows that before he starts the work, there is a need for a pre-construction meeting. Number 4, there was some concern, I guess, from past projects of construction vehicles parking on the public way. And since High Street's not the widest road in the area, we put a notation that signage would be placed on High Street during the construction period, that parking of construction vehicles of any type would not be permitted, and that is noted on sheet 2 of the drawing set. Next item, hours of construction. The board mentioned 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. would be an acceptable limit of construction activity, and also no deliveries or a delivery time as well. So we've added 2 notes to the plan, one regarding the construction activity itself, and one regarding deliveries being limited to those hours of 7 to 5. There was a question, where would the employees of the construction activity park? We've noted a point on the plan within the main array as we get into that point. During the initial construction, there'll be limited vehicles as they're cutting in that access. And there is places on site for the limited amount of construction vehicles during the first phases. And then we have designated a point for employee parking on sheet 10. We also noted 2 separate laydown areas for materials, one for the first phase, one for the second phase. Again, those have been noted on sheet 10. And then finally, there was some question about dust control, although the majority of the clearing and activity will be pretty isolated on the site. We have put a notation regarding dust control and the need for a water truck to be available on site during dry weather conditions throughout the construction. And that's noted on sheet 11. So those are the changes I think we talked about at the last meeting, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, this is a public hearing. How this works, and I should have stated this earlier, but the applicant makes their presentation. If we have any questions from the general public or those that are tuning in, this is the time to ask them. The applicant will answer through the chair, typically, or the questions will be asked through the chair. The applicant will answer them that way. So now's the time, if anybody's interested in this project, to ask a question. Anybody from the board have a question? I'm sorry. Hold on, Chris is saying something to me. We're trying to unmute everybody so that if somebody has a question. If anybody from the board has any question, let's.
I had one question,
Exactly.
Kevin. You had voiced a concern about the material for the construction fence on that. I think it's the northerly side that was the resident had small children and something small children, and you were questioning whether it was going to be a snow fence or a sturdy utility style temporary fencing. Did you ever have an answer to that?
So Steve, you want to answer that?
Well, we had originally thought just going with the orange construction fencing with, stakes to hold it up and hold it in place. We felt that gave a nice visual barrier. If the board prefers the more like a chain type, with sections that you set out, you see them on the construction jobs, ringing construction project, the applicant would not be opposed to agreeing to substitute that or even supplement the orange fencing, which is a nice visual, with the chain link style. It's almost like a farm fence that would be appropriate.
Yeah,
We'd
I think Steve, I not to cut you off, but I'm glad that the applicant's willing to do that, because I think that's going to give an extra level of security and just a better feeling by everybody up there. We talk about each one we permit, we learn little nuanced things, and thank you, Bob, for bringing it up. But I think, yeah, a fortified fence up there, and you want to put the snow fence as a visual acuity kind of thing, but then put the fortified fence, if you will, up too. I think that would go a long way and help protect the folks that are around there and serve its purpose, right?
No, not a problem at all. We would agree to that.
Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you, Bob. I think we've successfully unmuted everybody, so if there's anybody from the public now who's attending this meeting on Zoom, if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. If you do, just identify yourself. Okay, anybody else from the board have any questions? This is, again, if you have the ability to look at your computer or an iPad or whatever, the plans are all online. This is the one that's located on a high street where the actual array is, Steve, is it 1,000 feet off the road?
Oh, it's more than 1,000. It's about 1,000 feet from the nearest house. Yes.
Right. So there was not much concern other than the ones that we discussed, right? Traffic, dust up front, and protecting the citizens up there and times of operation. So I think if we can change that and make it a condition that there's also, what do you call it? I don't want to call it a construction fence because that's too broad of a term. What do you want to call that, Steve, that metal fence, that chain link fence? Is it just chain link?
Yeah, I think if you identify it as a 6-foot metal fence, temporary, 6-foot temporary fence, metal fence, construction fence,
Okay.
I think that gets the point across to what the contractor needs to provide. And,
Right, and those are the types of things, if they have questions during the pre-construction meeting, we could certainly answer that. So
Yep.
I would just, I would take I would accept the motion at this point in time to include the use of a 6-foot metal temporary construction fence to be installed along the entranceway for a length of the property line, the abutters property lines, for safety purposes. I'll accept that motion as a condition, for a condition. Somebody
So
on the
moved.
board want to make that? Thank you. Do I need I got a second?
Second.
I need it. Thank you. Okay, again, we're gonna take a roll call. So all in favor, Bob Joes,
Yes.
Jim Freites,
Yes.
Debbie Robbins,
Yeah, yes.
and Kevin Damaris says yes. So the motion carries unanimous. That is now a condition of the approval. The next motion at this point in time is to, if the board so chooses, to approve the plans, revision date, I believe it's July 29th, 2020, that shows all the notes as we discussed prior, and to include the conditions that we spoke about prior.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
I need a second. Anybody?
Or second.
That's okay. Thank you. Motion being made and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Bob Joes,
Yes.
Jim Freites,
Yes.
Debbie Robbins,
Yes.
and Kevin Damaris says yes. So the motion carries unanimous to approve the site plan review for the High Street Solar Barriers LLC there with the aforementioned conditions. Steve, do you have anything else for us?
No, I think that's it for me for tonight, and I appreciate the positive vote this evening, so thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for being part of the inaugural, the first planning board Zoom meeting ever. All right. You'll be able to
Good
tell your
luck.
grandchildren about it. Have a good night,
Absolutely.
guys. Thank you.
Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
No. Just Chris has been trying to unmute folks, but if they've accidentally left their phone on mute themselves, I believe it's *6, and that will either unmute or mute you at any time. So I'm going to remind everybody, because we've had a couple instances where we are, this is basically for all intents and purposes live. And we cannot go back and fix our mistakes that we say out loud. So just keep in mind, I've been caught a couple times myself. It's the Navy in me. I have a little salty language every now and again. We're going to move on to application for Borrego Solar Systems. It's a public hearing for a site use permit for 76 Quanapog Road. Again, this is Borrego. I will call that public hearing back to order. Do we have Dean here?
Yes, I'm on, as well as Zach Farkas, our project developer.
Excellent. Good to have you guys. Again, just kind of bear with us. For those folks that are interested in this public hearing, I know I need to repeat myself, but applicant will make whatever presentation. We are fortunate enough to have Scott Turner with us from Environmental Partners Group. Is that correct, Chris? Oh, okay, welcome, Scott, and thank you. So if we have any kind of engineering questions or any review questions, Scott will be there to help us. We'll let the applicant make their presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions. So, Dean, last we met, there was, I believe, a singular outstanding issue, and that was relative to the drainage calculations. And if I remember correctly, you had indicated to us that you could make those changes relatively easily, and I'm hoping that that was the case and that you're back here with some good news.
Yes, we did make those changes based on the comments from environmental partners. We changed some of our land use cover and updated our stormwater modeling for the property. We did also contract to get some additional soils testing done on site and provided that information. Scott still had some concerns about some of the test results. The sites are not very accessible at this point, and some of those, well, all of them were done by hand. So they were not as deep as we would like to have if we had been able to get equipment in there. But we're able to verify that the seasonal high water table was below certain elevations. So we just made a few tweaks to our stormwater modeling in the last week that Scott has accepted at this point. We raised the bottom elevation of some of the basins to accommodate what we couldn't prove through the soils testing, that we were above the seasonal high water table. There are a few things in the letters that were left for final decisions by the board. If I could just step through those maybe so that we
Sure.
can clarify.
Sure.
Okay. In the letter, there was an item regarding name, address, and contact information for the system installer. And we had noted that the plan is for Borrego to be the system installer, but that final designation wouldn't be made until the time of the building permit application. As you know, our systems get financed through third parties. And so that's really something that's determined at that point. And the comment from environmental partners was that the board should decide if that response is acceptable. At the time of building permit, we would be able to provide the final contact information for the system installer, who the emergency contacts are. All of that information would be available at that time.
So again, not to cut you off, but to make it simple, a condition that would state that we must be provided prior to issuance of a building permit, the planning board must be provided with the appropriate name and contact information for those involved with the project, and you would be amenable to that.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next.
Second item is regarding our application to the utility. We had provided some dates, an application that we made for our interconnection. The process is very long and drawn out at this point, and they're very open-ended right now. You know from past experience that those don't really get resolved until relatively close to construction, and then the placement into operation can take quite a while afterwards. So we'll provide all that information to the board when it's available. The application is in and is ongoing with the utility.
So is that another item that could be, that your building permit could be contingent upon?
Zach, are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm fine with that. I think it'd be similar to all projects that Borrego's done, because we never have the interconnection services agreement at the time of permitting, but we're happy to provide it prior to the building permit.
Right, and that might be, it seems to be a recurring theme, not just with you. But I'm just wondering if that's something that we need to change within our own regulations as being a requirement up front, if it is such difficult. But again, if you're okay with that being contingent, then I think we can make that a condition. And I would just ask Chris to make sure that you're writing down these conditions as we go along. Okay.
Okay. Another small item that was still open and left to the board, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, a SWIP. We provided a draft. They just wanted to make sure that there was a condition that we do file the permit with the EPA and provide the final SWIP at least 14 days prior to construction. And that seems fine to have that as a condition as well.
A condition of building permit issuance.
Sure. Yeah, we would need to have it available at that time because we would be
I was
filing.
going to say, once you get that far into it, Dean, don't you, you should have already crossed that T and dotted that I, right?
Once we're close to construction, yes.
Yeah.
We do have a draft of it, so it would just be
Right,
final,
right.
finalizing everything with the emergency contact information and other minor items like that.
Okay, what's the next one?
That's really all that was there. There was one additional comment in their final letter. The plans have been revised to show revised grading for detention basin 4. We recommend that an emergency overflow be included and a riprap pad be included at the discharge pipe from this basin. We consider this to be minor revisions that can be included as a condition of approval. So we would agree to, make a quick revision on the plans and provide a final set for the board's approval.
Okay. Scott, I'm reading both their response and your review letter. Are there any things, and again, thanks for joining us, are there any things that jump out at you as being outstanding, or have we gotten to the point now where your issues have been addressed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue was really the soil testing associated with the stormwater detention basins, and we've come to resolution on that. I don't really see anything else outstanding except for this last comment that Dean read off, which, in my opinion, is a small item.
Right, and again, just to repeat that, Dean, what that last item was, so everybody understands.
Sure. Scott was asking us to add an emergency overflow and a riprap pad at the discharge pipe from basin number 4.
Okay, and again, that you are willing to do that and to have that plan set submitted to us for sign off.
Sure, we can do that right away.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anybody from the general public have any questions on this project? Nope. Okay. Anybody from the board have a question on this project? Just
Nope.
to who was that? Okay. So just to remind everybody, this is the one that's on Quanapog Road. There was some conversation relative to how much of a buffer up front. And I think, Dean, if you want just to speak briefly about that again, but I think you had done some things to help mitigate or offset the impact.
We did provide additional buffer along there, as well as since the time of our first submittal, we got the final survey drawings, and the original property lines were shown up very close to the edge of pavement on Quanapog Road, but they're actually 25 to 30 feet back from the edge of pavement, and that's largely forested. We did also increase the amount of vegetative buffer along there in the front of the property, as well as providing a bit more of vegetative buffer along the north property line. In addition to that, it's been a while since we talked about it, but we did add a sheet to our drawing set that provided for, safe access, showed the approach from either direction along Quanapog Road to verify that we had added site distances and whatnot. And there were some requests from the board that the construction timeframes be limited because there are school buses that use that road. So that's all noted on sheet C 6.0 of our plan set. And we're going to
Okay.
provide some signage about it, about the hidden driveway there.
Yeah, that would be good. And I don't know if you were on for our previous, but we've basically come to realize that 7 to 5 seems to work for construction timeframe, Monday through Saturday. And that's to also include deliveries. So
Yes,
Chris,
there,
let's make that,
yes,
yeah.
there is a
Go ahead.
note about the material deliveries that they're to be scheduled outside of times of school bus use on Quantapug Road.
well, Dean, more importantly, again, I don't know how much you know about what's going on with the other site here, Doug, but we had an instance where tractor trailers were showing up, driving down a residential street to make a delivery, and just going out there and in the middle of the night and doing this. And to the point where they had, the construction company had to hire a police detail for 2 weeks straight overnight to make sure none of that happened. So what I'm telling you is, I think we're going to try to be consistent with conditions. And I'm going to remind everybody that, this is a zoning enforcement issue once it leaves our approval and moves on. So the conditions and the zoning part of this is all enforceable through the building department, if you will. So deliveries ought to be between 7 and 5. And again, we're going to remind other departments of their responsibilities, I think, with these types of projects. And if we see something that's outside of that, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a follow-up with the zoning enforcement official. So 7 to 5 construction, 7 to 5 deliveries, no construction vehicles parked out on the road. The workers need to park on site, off the road, clearing, make sure that for traffic purposes, whether it's school bus, trash pickup, or just regular commuter travel and residential travel. So again, those are all going to be like generic, I think, conditions going forward on all solar, but unless anybody on the board has an issue with that, I think that we should include that also on this project. Are there any exceptions to that?
I agree.
Okay. Dean, does Borrego have an issue with agreeing to that?
No, I think that's consistent with the notations that are already on our access safety plan, that construction vehicles have to be staged on site. They can't park and idle. That it doesn't seem like it's an onerous condition. There was one other notation on there that the board had brought up, that when we start clearing operations, that clearing equipment be staged off site prior to the start of clearing. So that there weren't any vehicles trying to stage for clearing operations within Quantapug Road either.
Okay, and that's a note that's on there also.
That's on the plan set, yes.
Yep. Okay. Anybody from the board have any other questions on this? Scott, again, you've done a great job with this, actually, and we appreciate the fact that you get into the minutia of these things that we may not completely fully understand or have the acumen to do ourselves. But in your opinion, this project meets all, or at least answers all your concerns.
Yes, that's right.
Excellent. Okay, again, one more time for the folks in the general public, if they have any questions, now is your chance to ask. Okay, that being said, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Motion's made and supported to close the public hearing. All in favor, roll call. Bob Joes.
Yes.
Jim Freites.
Yes.
Debbie Robbins.
Yes.
And Kevin Damaris says yes, so we close the public hearing. Now we have an opportunity amongst ourselves to discuss, we've had the advantage of these things being before us for so long. Thank you, COVID-19. I think all of our concerns and the people's concerns, in my opinion, have been at least answered. And then on top of that, our engineer's concerns have been answered to his satisfaction. So I think with having those extra conditions on there with the notes with increased oversight to the solar going forward. I think at the end of the day, they've done what we've asked them to do. So, does the board have any other questions on this? Okay, hearing none, then I will entertain a motion that we approve the site plan for Quantapug Solar, plan set dated, Dean, help me out quick here. When was this? What's the date? Revision date 8/7/20, right? Dean? Dean, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
Oh.
8/7 is the date of the last plan set that was submitted. We will be supplementing that with, with some minor changes to the detail sheet that Scott
Right,
had
so that, we'll
requested.
make that a condition, Dean. So
Sure.
we're approving the general plan set dated 8/7/20 with the condition that a revised detail sheet, in particular, relative to the spillway and riprap pad to be
Yes.
located at D Pond number 4, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Along with the aforementioned conditions that Chris has a list of, but it's the construction 7 to 5, no construction vehicles and workers' vehicles to be parked on Quantapug. Be mindful of the bus scheduling, if that ever happens again. And that the deliveries are also 7 to 5. Any other conditions from the board that they would like to discuss? Okay, if that's the case, then I will entertain a motion that we approve the site plan with the aforementioned conditions.
I'll make that motion with the conditions as set prior to this and listed currently with the plan technician.
Second.
Motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call. Bob Joes,
Yes.
Jim Freites,
Yes.
Debbie Robbins,
Yes.
Kevin Demaris says yes. The motion carries unanimously. We will not be endorsing these plans until we get that revision. So Dean, my suggestion is get that revision over to Scott. And Scott, you can review it, and I think a quick email that says looks good or needs improvement. And then once we get the final sheet, then we will sign off on the plans and move forward that way.
That sounds
Everybody
good.
understand?
It shouldn't take more than a few days to make those
Yeah.
additions to the plan.
Yeah, and the good news is most of us are around town, so we can stop by town hall, sign off on the thing, and we can move forward that way. I will have Chris send out a draft copy of the approval with the conditions. If for whatever reason something got missed on that, planning board members, please feel free and to send us your comments, and we can go back and review the tape and see if there's anything I missed. Okay, that closes that one out. So we're on to the next one. This is item number 6. So this is a continuation of public hearing for Borrego Solar Systems for a site plan review for 45 Brayley Road. And I will call that public hearing back to order. Again, if there are members from the public here, the applicant will make a presentation. We'll open it up for questions. Just kindly identify yourself. Once you have my attention, ask the question. We'll try to get an answer for you. And if you haven't already, unmute yourself. *6 will do that. So, Dean, take it away.
Okay, I will, I'll go through this similar to what I did for Quantapug Road. We made the same kinds of revisions to our stormwater modeling and some final tweaks this week that Scott had accepted. We have a very similar letter from them as we did on Quantapug, so the major issues have been resolved and they're good with some conditions. So I'll go through those few items that still needed attention from the board. They had a concern about our tree clearing being close to the wetlands, partly because our entrance road does have some wetland impacts associated with it. And we have wetland replication areas that will require clearing and grading up close to the wetland boundary. So they had recommended that the board include a condition requiring close monitoring of the limit of clearing as part of any approvals that are issued. We don't have any problem with that, being that we're going to be working closely to the wetland resource areas. So that's open for the board's consideration and a potential condition on the project.
So we'll talk them one at a time, if you don't mind, Dean. So if we were to impose a condition that, and you guys typically do this anyway, or in construction, but the limits of clearing are set with stakes, and you'll have resident engineers on site?
Yes,
that
we
correct?
will have a full-time site supervisor there, project manager, and our office also provides civil engineering oversight during construction.
Okay, so if a condition is such that in the areas relative or proximal to the wetland and buffer zone encroachment, that once the area is staked, we get a narrative from the civil engineering firm, whatever, that states that yes, in fact, they are working within the limits of the approved area. That
Yeah.
wouldn't be.
That sounds
Okay.
acceptable. And I believe if this goes forward like other projects that Environmental Partners provides third-party inspections for the town as well, I assume we'll be
They do.
providing some deposits for, for inspection fees during construction. So they would
Yeah, I
also
was gonna
be
say-
party to that.
Yeah, so you guys are it's gonna be easier for you to be on site. So when EPG goes down there, whether it's every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever it is, they'll be able to ratify or verify what you've sent us in a narrative. But what I don't want is the clearings you get done, and then we go down 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later and say, hey, you've made a mistake.
Sure.
This way, if it's staked out and we have a letter from you, the civil engineers, that says we have identified the limits of clearance, and we welcome anybody to do an inspection. If we have time, we can send EPG out. If not, the next inspection they go out there, they can look at it.
That sounds
We just
acceptable.
don't, okay, all right. Scott, is that sound reasonable?
Yes, that sounds perfectly reasonable.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Dean, what's your next issue?
Okay. The next open item is really for the Conservation Commission's consideration. As we have a small amount of wetland resource impacts, we had offered a replication area, and some of the concerns were about the size of that, the amount of impacts and what ratio of replication that we're offering. So we recently increased our replication ratio to over 3 to 1. It's actually over 3.5 to 1. So that's really for a decision by the Conservation Commission, but I wanted to make the board aware that we had increased our wetland replication that was offered.
Okay, good
Uh,
catch, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, 3 to 1
Right.
is a good ratio.
Yeah, and you're offering, Dean, to go up a little bit higher than that, you said?
It actually is what we've offered is a bit higher than that. I hadn't calculated it out, but Scott had calculated it at 3.6 to 1 is the actual ratio
Okay.
that we've offered.
Perfect.
And another item related to that, that it does look like perhaps you could condition or the Conservation Commission could condition is that they had the desire for us to have a wetland scientist on site for construction of the wetlands replication area, that be supervised by a wetland scientist. And that's also acceptable. Julie Goodwin from
Yeah,
Prime has been our wetland consultant along the way, and she's prepared those replication plans and would be able to provide that oversight.
Yeah, typically on the Concom side of things, where you have larger replication areas, that is a requirement. So if you're amenable to that, Chris, just make sure you write that down as a condition also. Okay, what's next?
Next item is similar to Quantapug, the name, address, and contact information for the system installer. It's the same issue that we believe that Borrego would be constructing this, but that wouldn't be finally determined until the time of building permit application. So it'd be a similar condition to what
So
we
is that-
had on Quantapug.
And that'll be similar to the SWIP plan in that other item on the previous filing on it.
Right. This was a condition that was outlined on Quantapug as
Yep.
well.
Yeah. So the same condition, those conditions that are dependent, or the building permit is dependent on, need to be satisfied. And that would be the information relative to connecting to the grid. Is that right?
Well,
Is that one?
in this case, we could provide that at the time of building permit.
Okay.
So it should be
And so-
similar to the condition on Quantapug project.
Okay, which is the construction and operate, whatever, that name will be provided prior to issuance of the building permit.
Right. The system installer
The
is,
system installer and the SWIP plan
the SWIP plan will also
SWIP.
be provided at the same time
prior to issuance of the building permit.
prior to issuance of the building permit.
Okay. All right, so that, if you're amenable to that, that obviously would be a condition on this one also.
Sure, that will be fine. Another item that's similar was regarding the interconnection application with the utility. So it would be acceptable to have a condition that we provide that prior to building permit, as it was on the Quantapug project as well.
Okay. That sounds good. So those, again, Chris has taken these notes on the conditions. And just if we're talking about conditions, again, the 7 to 5, no parking on the street, construction entrance must be secure, proper signage, that kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
You have no issues with that on this site either, right?
No, there should not be. This one is well back from the public
Right.
way there.
Yeah, this is another one you're not gonna see it. It's just the construction entrance that you were really gonna see. So, which is eventually the entrance to the facility. So. Okay, is there anything else?
Those are the notes that I had, unless Scott has something else to point out.
Yeah.
Scott, you
I'm
have anything else?
Scrolling through the letter, I don't see anything. Again, the biggest item we had, well, the two biggest items we had were ground cover and groundwater, which we have made adjustments to accommodate the test holes they did. So I think we're good.
Excellent. Okay, anybody from the general public have any questions on this? Unless, Dean, you had anything else. You said you were finished, correct?
That's all that I had on this project.
Excellent. All right. Anybody from the general public have any questions? Okay, if not, well, I haven't closed the public hearing yet, right? Chris? I have not. So that being said, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I need a second. Okay, motion's been supported. Roll call vote. Bob Joes. Bob Joes.
He's connecting.
I can't hear him. Are you muted, Bob? We'll move on. Jim Freites,
Yes.
Debbie Robbins.
Yes.
So Jim Freites says yes. Debbie Robbins says yes. Kevin Damaris says yes.
Bob says
Bob?
yes.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so
Sorry.
public hearing is closed. No, that's all right, Bob. Hey, that's the worst that happens. We're good. Any questions, comments? from the board on this?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Everybody is good with those, the conditions that we've laid out for this project? You know, the 7 to 5, the no construction vehicles on, you know,
Yep.
the stuff that we had talked about. And again, Dean, keeping in mind that if we have to add a note or something to our approval that should at any point, whether it's the planning board's representative or the zoning enforcement official, or I would even say police and or fire, if at any point what we've approved and we find out it may not be working as well as we thought it might relative to the construction entrance and that kind of deal, or signage, that you may be asked to increase, decrease, or change signage as we go along. I'd like to have that flexibility, because you know what they say about the best laid plans, sometimes you can miss something. So as long as a Borrego understands that that is how we're going to proceed with these solar arrays going forward.
Sure. That makes
Okay.
sense.
All right. So if there's nothing else from the board, then I will entertain a motion that we approve, that we issue approval for a site plan for the plan set dated, again, is this 8/7, Dean? What's this plan set? I'm trying to find it here.
Sorry, no, this one is not. Let me,
This is Gravely. Yeah, hold on.
the revision
Okay.
date was 8/10/20.
8/10, yeah, yeah.
And I
that's right,
stamped
8/10.
them today. So 8/10/20 is the revision on the drawing set.
All right, 8/10, with, again, the aforementioned conditions that we have, that the planning technician has been writing down. So I'll entertain that motion.
So moved. Nope.
Thank
Jeff.
you. Who's got a second for me?
Second,
All right, motion's made and supported. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Bob Joes.
Yes.
Bob Joes says yes. Jim Freites.
yes.
Jim Freites says yes. Debbie Robbins.
Yes.
Debbie Robbins says yes. Kevin Damaris also says yes. Motion is passed unanimous. I think we're good with this project at this point in time. I don't
Okay.
think we have anything else since we've just voted on it. We have no
Sounds good.
outstanding items, right, relative to you having to get us. So, planning board members, we have the plans. Once Chris has got the approval letter, the approval written out, he's gonna send it out to you folks. If there are no, issues and we don't hear anything back from you, we will then ask you to come down and sign it here at Town Hall. Once it's all signed by the members, Dean will let you guys know, okay?
Okay. Being that we've been working through this, this period with COVID-19, we've been making electronic submittals. Do you need hard copy of the plans? Do you need me to provide those to your office?
Electronic is good. Do we have 11 by 17 plan sets, Chris? Is that what we have on file, or do we have full set? All right. Yeah, it's difficult for us to pick up a full set plan. We can do 11 by 17, so that's fine. If we send it in a PDF and we have it, we'll just make 11 by 17 copies of it.
All right, I did provide the PDF of those plan sets.
Perfect. See, that was easy. Anything else?
That's all from my end. I appreciate your time and consideration tonight.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate your patience with us on this. All right. Well, good luck with that, and we'll be getting in touch with you relative to the approval letter and all. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks. So that was number 6, correct? So that brings us back to number 1. Ooh, where's my other- oh. So item number 1 is a public hearing for a residential subdivision of land entitled the Residences at the Assonet Inn. At this time, I believe Bob Joes would like the record to reflect that he is going to remove himself from the meeting. Is that correct, Bob?
It is. Is there any other business that's coming before the board that I need to be on?
There is one more item, Bob. It's for general discussion. And before we call that public hearing to order, I will just say that Chris has sent out, this is the zoning articles. They're trying to expedite getting these things in. So they tried to push things up by a little bit, so we're kind of pushed the time. So what we've done is we've submitted a zoning article for a public hearing relative to the solar and in particular their setbacks.
Okay,
So
I did review
I
that.
don't want to say, yeah, I don't want to say we just threw some numbers together, but what we did was we looked at, Chris and I just very briefly, and saying to increase the setbacks, and we kind of did it on by a size of the actual solar array. It also has a definition there we got to work on a definition for what a vegetated buffer is. So we're not really going to be discussing all that much. I'm just letting people know that that's what's coming down the pike, and we're going to have a public hearing on it. So be ready and review the materials that were provided to you by Chris.
All right, I have done that, and I've already started reviewing that and have some questions, concerns, but we'll bring that up at the next meeting. Is it going to be on the next meeting also?
When's the public hearing for this, Chris? Yeah, we're planning on having the public hearing for this September 1st, if that works for everybody.
Perfect.
Oh, hold on, he's checking again. Yeah. Yeah, it's the 1st, so, is that's the only thing on the agenda, Chris? For September 1st? Okay, so that right now looks like it's going to be the only thing on the agenda. It'll probably be Zoom again. And I know some people were asking, I know we're 3/4 through this meeting, but some people are asking why we're going to Zoom. A couple reasons. We got shut out by the tropical storm. Unfortunately, Tripoli and West Nile is encroaching upon the area. We don't have any in Freetown yet, but they've been doing aerial spraying in the community surrounding us, and it's only a matter of time, I think, before outside activities are going to be limited. And unfortunately, during the time of COVID, public restrooms are not available, and asking folks to sit there for a couple of hours and not be able to use a restroom, I thought, quite honestly, was extremely unfair. There's a condition that if somebody uses the bathroom, we have to clean it after each use. We can't possibly do that and hold our meeting. So that's why we're doing Zoom. Appreciate everybody's patience with it. So that's the only other thing, Bob. So if you want to leave the meeting, that's entirely up to you. But you have stated that you will not be part of this conversation for the next public hearing.
Okay, and yes, that's
correct?
I'd like the record to show that I'm recusing myself, and I actually will be leaving the meeting at this time.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
All right, bye.
Yeah. Have a great night, Bob.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now. Okay. So continuing on with the agenda, back to public hearing number 1. This is a continuation of the public hearing. I will call it back to order. The application is by Nine Lion Inc. And this is for a residential subdivision of land called the Residences of the Sonnen Inn, located 3 lots located off of Water Street in the Village Residential Zoning District. I will call that public hearing back to order. Again, if you are from the public and you are here for this, I would just kindly ask that you allow the applicant to make their presentation. After that, we will open up to the general public for questions. If you have a question, make sure you unmute yourself, otherwise we won't be able to hear you. *6 will do that. Get my attention, just politely state your name for the record. Ask your question. The questions will be answered through the applicant, but please direct all questions and comments through the chair. As everybody knows, we have been recording this meeting from the beginning, and this is still going to be recorded. Are there any questions before we get started? No? I believe, Niles, are you still with us?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being here, Niles.
Thank you. So for the record, Niles Zager from Zenith Consulting Engineers, is continuation of a public hearing that we had back a few weeks ago. And at that time, we made our presentation, and we were at that time waiting on comments from EPG, which we have since received. And I'd like to just go through those. There was essentially 10 comments, really 9 of them. And one of them is just a statement I'll go through. So I'd like to just go through those if that's all right with you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. So number one, and I'll try to kind of do as a broad range, try to generalize here, but this section states that all outfalls of a drainage system, a reinforced concrete head wall shall be provided. We're proposing a flared end into a sediment forebay. For a small application like this, we feel as though it's applicable here. So we are asking for a waiver from that section. I don't know if you want to discuss each one individually.
Why don't we just discuss them individually? I think it's easier for everybody to keep pace. Again, for those that are at home following along, if you go onto our website under the boards and committees, under the planning board, look on the upper left-hand side. I believe it says meeting information and plans or something of that effect. And in there, you can find the consultant's review letter that we are talking about and discussing now. And so the first item is relative to flared ends versus what our standard requires is concrete head walls. And you're asking us to waive that. We've waived it in similar applications. Scott Turner from Environmental Partners Group, who is the one who provided us with this review letter. Your exception to this, is it simply because our regulations or require the head wall, or is there some sort of catastrophic failure issue that we need to know about flared end?
No, I mean, we're just pointing out inconsistencies with the regulations.
Yeah, okay.
So
And
we
so,
don't- I mean, there are plenty of, there are other towns that don't require head walls and want flared ends. So it's really
yeah,
preference
and
of the
and that's
town.
kind of what I was getting at earlier when I said I think some of our regulations are, and they're great, and they're a lot of times above and beyond. But particularly with modern construction and techniques and materials, some of them have almost become a little obsolete or overkill. So I don't take exception to this waiver request, and I would be in favor of granting it. Is there any discussion from the planning board members relative to that? So by consensus, meaning I don't hear anything, by consensus, everybody would be in favor of granting the waiver on the flared end.
Yeah.
I'm going to take, okay, excellent. Want to move on to number 2, Niles?
Yes, sir. So this is similar. This is a request, and we're proposing HDPE pipe in lieu of RCP concrete pipe. So we're again just asking for a waiver to that. We just, the applicant would really prefer using the HDPE pipe for many reasons, but really installation is a key and just much easier to work with.
Unfortunately, our construction expert on the board, I say that, the newest kid on the block, Chris, is not with us tonight. And unfortunately, our real construction expert, Mark Rogers, has moved on to other things. Let me ask you, the HDPE pipe, is performance testing standards and all, is it equal to the reinforced concrete pipe?
Yes.
And Scott, are you in agreement with that statement?
I generally am. It has to be installed properly, otherwise it may deflect. And I've had, I've spec'd HDPE pipe on plenty of projects that I designed. I have had a couple instances where it deflects if it's not installed right. That's the only hesitancy that I would, or that's the only comment I have regarding the HDPE pipe. Most folks love it. It's a lot easier to handle. It's lighter.
Yeah,
It's cheaper because it's easier to install.
yeah, we use it for our water lines in some instances, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different, this is a different.
It's a different product. I
right.
understand it. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a level of comfort I think that we already have in Freetown. We've given it, granted this waiver, I can't tell you how many times, for that reason, right?
Yep.
So I think if the one hang up or issue that could be with this is the actual installation and making sure it's done right, Niles, I think that being said, in order to grant this waiver, I think that we would have to have some sort of oversight from somebody, yourself or somebody from your office that can sign off on a letter that says, in fact, construction was observed by XYZ person and or corporation, and it was done in accordance with all the manufacturer's recommendations.
Absolutely amenable to that. And I'd also like to note too that, and I completely agree with Mr. Turner's reasoning. This is not really within the roadway. I know it's within the layout, but it's a catch basin and it's basically going under the sidewalk. So it will not be subject to, traffic loading. So I do agree it still needs to be installed properly. But it's not going to be, it's not like we're going across a traveled way where it's going to be subject to much.
True, but if it's installed correctly, you could run it under the Brooklyn Bridge.
Exactly.
Right, or traffic on I-95. So as long as we make sure it's installed correctly, I think we're good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Everyone amenable to that on the planning board? Anybody have any issues with that waiver request? No?
I don't.
Okay. Next.
So the number 3, the section states that a granite curb inlet shall be installed adjacent to all catch basins. We're proposing Cape Cod berm. We only have one catch basin. So, I spoke to my client about this, and he would much rather have Cape Cod berm, for aesthetics reasons as well. So, again, we are asking for a waiver to that section.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've granted, been doing this a while now, and since I've been on the board, we've been granting that waiver pretty consistently. And I think, again, it's one of those issues where our regulations or requirements, I think, can be tweaked a little bit. I understand why we like them but I can also tell you, as a former plow operator here in the town, at 2 o'clock in the morning after a storm and you're plowing, you hit one of those things, you don't need a cup of coffee. It does a lot of damage and wakes the heck up out of you. So I think being consistent with what we've done throughout the rest of the town, I don't take exception to that. Particularly it's 3 houses, it's 1 catch basin. I don't think it's going to be an issue of cars running over the curbing, and ruining it that way. Scott, again, you're pointing this out simply because it doesn't meet our design requirements.
That's correct.
Yeah. Again, by consensus, does anybody on the planning board have an issue with this? No? Okay. Next. I think number 4.
Number 4. So this section states that suitable heavy equipment access must be provided around the entirety of all flow mitigation facilities. Specifically, a 20-foot gravel access road around the top of the infiltration basin is required. We are providing a 10-foot wide access around the entire, pretty much again around the entire infiltration basin from the road. Again, and this to me is more applicable to a situation where you have an outlet control structure that you need to access, where there could be there could be issues as far as trash getting in the outlet or overflow, what have you. But this is just strictly an infiltration basin with no outlet other than infiltration into the ground and a overflow It does have an emergency overflow, but that's basically a broad crested wear, excuse me. So again, we feel as though that this is more than suitable for an application like this. And, realistically, nobody is going to be driving around that berm to access that area when there's really nothing to access.
So instead of 20 feet, you're willing to go down to 10 feet and meet the other requirements?
Yeah, that's correct. We are proposing at this
18
time
inches.
the
Right.
18-inch base of gravel borrow, correct. We are absolutely meeting that. That's correct.
Right. So again, this wouldn't be the first time that why does the planning board want, that type, to your point, but also, the highway department or the town is responsible for maintaining that. Excuse me. So the 10 feet gives enough room to get small machine in there, mow it, do what it has to do, clean it. And that allows a pickup truck to get in and out of there, pickup truck with a trailer. So we have granted that. I think we've even granted it where we didn't even require it around the entirety of the pond. So if we're getting 10 feet all the way around the pond, is that what you're proposing here, right?
That's correct.
All right. Anybody from the planning board have any issues with that? No? Okay.
I don't, Kevin.
Okay. Jim?
I'm good.
Jim, unmute. Did I wake you up, Jim?
No, I had to unmute myself.
Oh, well, probably you should leave it unmuted so you can participate there. I can't hear you cursing at me when you got it muted. All right, so by consensus, I don't think we have any issue with that one particular.
I'm good with it.
Excellent, thank you, Jim. Next one, number 5.
Again, to do with the infiltration detention basin, this is the side slopes. We're proposing 3-to-1 side slopes, which is a standard slope on an infiltration basin, detention basin, and we're asking for a waiver from your requirement of 6-to-1 side slope. So all that would do is take away from some of the volume of the basin. And again, we are loaming and seeding that area, so it will be stabilized. The bottom of the basin will be sand, left as a sand bottom for to allow infiltration. But the remainder of it, we are asking for a waiver to the 3-to-1 side slopes in lieu of the 6-to-1.
Under normal circumstances, will this deep pond hold water?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Under usual circumstances, this deep pond is not designed to hold a bunch of water, correct? It's got an infiltration component, and it right.
That's correct. This infiltration basin is designed. It actually drains much faster, but it has to drain within 72 hours of a 100-year storm event. But again, it does drain much faster than that. And we are dealing with as I spoke at the last hearing, we're dealing with very, very sandy, gravelly soil here. Every single perk test and soil evaluation I did out there was all very consistent.
Okay. Scott, if you don't mind weighing in on this, 3-to-1 doesn't seem out of the ordinary. Again, we have given this. I think we've actually given it 2-to-1 in some instances where they were kind of tucked out of the way. There is a safety component to it. We don't want to make them too steep so somebody over there, falls down into it. 3-to-1 seems pretty reasonable. Scott, do you have any issues with that?
3-to-1 is generally reasonable. Most detention basins are designed, or infiltration basins are designed with 3-to-1 slopes. I was a little curious about the 6-to-1 side slope requirement. I was actually thinking it was more an aesthetic item, but 3-to-1 is fine. Just have to make sure that you can get in there and maintain it, and plenty of basins are built with 3-to-1 side slopes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, the depth of the basin as well is only, usually if you're dealing with a basin, a lot of times you try to go with a 4-foot depth with a 3-foot working depth. This is only 3 foot deep total from top of berm to bottom of basin with a 2-foot working depth, meaning that at a 100-year storm event, there'll only be at a maximum 2 feet of water.
Right.
So
Right.
that just to work with that whole safety concern.
No, it's interesting, and I'm glad you point that out, right? Because again, until practicality, until you hear it and see it a number of times, you really don't understand why. And to Scott's point, I don't know if the 6-to-1 was on board when I got here, and I don't know if it's aesthetics or not, but I can tell you this. We have a couple of subdivisions that are in an area where you do have very good sandy soils, and the deep ponds don't hold water. And they're these giant deep ponds with these long slopes and 20-foot wide, and they just take about the monstrosity of the person's property, and they never have water in it. It's kind of a unique thing to see. So I don't take exception to the 3-to-1 side slopes. Consensus, the board, anybody have any issues with that?
I do not.
Excellent, thank you.
You
Debbie,
hear-
you're good, right? Yeah, I can hear you, buddy.
Good, just making sure.
Yep, I'm good. That's good for me.
Excellent, thank you. Number 6, please.
So this section is talking about 3 feet of cover over the HDPE pipe. We're proposing 2 feet of cover. We feel as though the HDPE pipe can handle this. And again, this is in an area that's not subject to traffic loading either. So, you know, and again, Mr. Turner can speak on this, but feel as though that this is, you know, acceptable as far as an engineering practice goes.
I guess,
Again, go ahead, Scott.
I guess my only question is, what is the minimum cover in the spec book for an HDPE pipe?
I believe it's 2 feet.
Well, okay, so let's kind of split the baby, but let's look at the, I can appreciate the fact that your HDPE is going to be outside the traveled way, right? In addition, it's only 3 house lots and there's not going to be, okay. And using it is caveated by you doing an inspection or somebody from your office and attesting to it was installed correctly. So I would say this, whatever the minimum requirements for cover and whatever the material requirements for cover from the manufacturer, those need to be met and or exceeded. I think that answers or at least addresses Scott's concern.
Yes.
So what do I mean by that? If you design this and it's with 2 feet of cover, Niles, but the manufacturer requires 2.5 feet, you're going to have to rework whatever you've got going on there.
Absolutely. We'll confirm.
Yeah, so if that can be, go ahead.
I guess my concern is this. So regardless of whether it's in the street or not, there will be times when you might have vehicles over it, whether it's somebody plowing the sidewalk, whether it's a vehicle that's trying to get in to maintain the basin. I have had instances where design requirements have been relaxed because they've been in landscaped areas, and there have been problems because vehicles do go over them, drive over those structures. So that's why I think it makes sense to just verify the minimum cover from the manufacturer. You probably look using ADS pipe, and then making sure it's installed properly, similar to the comment about the HDPE pipe before.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct on that, Scott, because you're right. We don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now. Hell, we see it in residential houses, right? They want to put a pool in or whatever, and they fail to figure out where their septic line is, and next thing you know, they crush their septic system, but they have a nice pool. So I would say, Niles, I think what you've heard is our review engineer and the board members are okay with this, so long as you can meet or exceed the manufacturer's installation instructions. And if you can do that, then I think we're going to be good.
Okay.
All right. And okay.
Number 7.
Number 7. Yep.
So this one is a little bit different. We're not asking for a waiver to it. It says this section requires the design minimize long-term safety issues, we recommend the applicant consider adding safety features along all areas where the edge of the sidewalk is in close proximity to a 3-to-1 slope, i.e. near the infiltration basin. It's our opinion, or it's our stance that there's over a 10 from the back of the sidewalk to the edge of the basin is over 10 feet. There's a 10-foot shoulder there. So it's our opinion that that's more than sufficient to not have, because I guess what would be an idea there would be put something like a guardrail or something of that nature. But it's our stance that, or my applicant's stance that, and our stance that we do not need to ask for a waiver because we feel as though that 10-foot shoulder is more than sufficient for that, for safety measures.
Yeah. So you have the side, I'm looking at the plans now, which is one of the benefits of Zoom, I guess. You've got the.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at it myself, which is great.
Right. You've got the walk, you've got the sidewalk, then you've got probably maybe 2 feet. And then you have your 10-foot wide drive along the edge, or along the top. I guess my initial thought was not necessarily a guardrail, but some type of vegetative screening to, just kind of as a signal for somebody not to drive in that way, especially when you have berm. I think a sidewalk is probably excessive, but maybe some type of visual barrier, I guess.
Can we plant a couple of trees over there?
I don't know if I don't believe any of my the applicants are on this meeting. If they are, I'd like for them to step in, but I mean, on my end, it's simple. It's just putting it on a plan. But I would have to speak with them if they're not on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I was thinking of trees, maybe a shrub, or maybe even like a post and rail fence or something. Something
I was going to say the other item might just be to put 3 lengths of post and rail fence over there that kind of is a point of demarcation. This is a drainage area over here, or something. I don't think that's excessive. I mean, we don't have to require anything, and it's hard to argue with the 10 feet being enough. Well, what do other board members feel? I mean, is it, again, understanding what the intended use of this is, I want to go back and look at that review comment, sorry. Here we go. This is number 7, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, along the edge of the sidewalk is close proximity to the one slope.
How many feet
Go ahead.
put in? If you let's say you had to put in some shrubbery, how long would that be? Because I can't see that. Now, is it an extreme amount of shrubbery that you have to put in, or is it a small amount, just
Be about 70 to 80 feet or so, depending on how long that the board would require, but somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more of almost like a visual barrier. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I like, and Scott, your point about the post and rail fence. I mean, I like post and rail fence. Why? You don't need to water it. It doesn't die. It doesn't shed leaves. We don't, roots aren't going to grow up. It's a nice country style visual reminder. We require it on conservation very often. Niles will attest to it, where people get close to wetlands, and this isn't a wetland issue, but it seems to be the happy medium that people can look at and see a nice split or a post and rail fence and think it's nice looking, right? So, is there any way, Niles, that while we're doing this, you can contact one of your?
I was just going to ask if it was all right if I step away for 2 minutes just to make a quick phone call.
Please, that would be great. And if anybody else needs to take a break, you go ahead and do that.
I'll be right back,
Um,
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sure. Is there anybody from the general public here relative to this or interested in this project? Okay,
So this is Scott again. The only other comment I might offer is that there is room there to reshape the basin and maybe pull it away from the road a little bit. So he has some room near the lot,
okay.
you know, and so maybe just provide a little bit more width. That's all.
So a little bit more of a width between the actual
That's right.
top of slope there and the actual road paved way or the sidewalk.
Yeah, that way it's not really a cost issue. It's more of just a redesign of the basin, so it's a little bit square. He just has a good amount of room between that existing house that I'm looking at the plan.
Right.
It's lot 215.
Right.
That's my other
Right.
option.
Yeah, and they're all good. Don't get me wrong, Scott. I'm hoping that they're agreeable to, the post and rail fence, and that kind of, I think, provides a number of things. The visual, the physical, if you will.
Yep.
I'm back, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
So I just spoke with the applicant. He's amenable to putting up shrubbery along that area. I asked him about the split rail fence. He really didn't want to do that. He liked the idea of the shrubbery. He said he planned on doing something like that anyway.
all right, well, see, that's good. So, Scott did bring up a point that it would appear, with me looking at the plans and Scott pointing it out, actually, that you might be able to adjust the size and shape of that to get it further away from the road. But I think if you are going to be willing to put up some shrubs, whatever they are, a condition, I think, would be that you would have to provide us with a planting detail.
Yeah, I could provide a planting detail. That's simple. No problem at all.
All right. So I think if everyone else on the board is okay with that, and I think, Scott, you mentioned it yourself, I
Yes.
think you're okay with that.
Yep.
Then I'd be willing to move on to, I think it's condition number 8, or item number 8, excuse me.
So this section states that no catch basin shall be installed in front of a driveway opening. We've actually revised again, these plans, the site grading and layout of the houses is very generic. It was more just to show a general, everything could fit on the property, and a general drainage overview of the property. So it does state that the driveway cannot go where the catch basin is. So we've actually revised the plan to accommodate that. So that one, we were able to make that change.
Okay, and you've demonstrated that on the plans?
That's correct.
Okay.
Um,
So that one we don't need to even concern with ourselves with. You've answered that concern.
That's correct. And then number 1 on the general comments,
Yep.
it says we recommend the applicant show the limits of the sediment flow bay and the proposed infiltration basin. We have provided that area on the plan, and we're using a riprap in that area, so it'll be a 1-foot high berm that demarcates the size of that sediment flow bay along with riprap, which is fairly a standard engineering practice.
Yeah, I guess my comment was more, it looks like you just have a big riprap pad there. That's all.
Yep.
So maybe if you just put a note on it that said limit of 4-bay or some C detail, that would be fine.
We did update the plan to better demarcate that area and grade it and to label it a little bit better. So it is much more clear on our new set of plans.
Okay, great.
And then number 2, does the board have any more comments? I'm sorry about that.
No, I don't think so. It sounds like you've addressed the issue.
And then number 2 is just basically a statement. It says the proposed project does not meet this thresholds for requiring compliance with the Massachusetts Stormwater Management Guidelines. the proposed project is a 3-lot, single-family subdivision, is therefore not subject to the guidelines. So that's really about it. That's just more of a statement. There was nothing to be addressed there.
Yeah, and we had talked about that, I think, at the initial public hearing. Those 4 lots and under are not subject to the stormwater management guidelines. But what we did do in this instance is ask you, and I guess at the end of the day require you, to do some stormwater management. And then we had that reviewed by peer review. And as you saw at the first public hearing, Scott, I don't think you weren't part of that, but I would say 90% of the questions and concerns were relative to stormwater and drainage and groundwater and flooding and all. So, planning board, pat yourself on the back for making sure that you were looking out for the interests of the folks down there. And thank you to the applicant for, even though you don't have to, I think you saw the writing on the wall and what was really concerning to us, and for addressing those. So I'm looking at the next comments from EPG, and it says the applicant has not requested any waivers at this time. We had talked about that earlier. Do we have a list of waiver requests? How are you addressing this?
There are waivers. And the new set of plans has the waivers as far as everything that we just went through. And then we're also, really the only other waiver that we're asking for is in Appendix A, is the detail for the cross section of the roadway. We're looking to modify that. So instead of breaking that down completely, we're just asking for a waiver to that with the pavement and thickness of pavement, sidewalk on one side in lieu of 2, things of that nature. But we're basically generalizing it, saying we're looking for a waiver to match what we have on our plan currently, and that's really the only other waiver that we're requesting at this time.
All right. So you've asked for the waivers 1 through 8. Except that on the number 8, you did not have to ask for a waiver. You met that, correct?
That's correct.
That's the catch basin. All the others were a waiver or a derivation from our requirements.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, number 7 as well is not a waiver. That's the one with the safety features. We believe that we're meeting that requirement as well.
Yeah, you're right. So in addition to those first 6, it's the width of the paved way and the sidewalk on one side, tree plantings, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody from the general public have any questions on this? Don't forget to unmute, *6. No? Chris, do we have anybody? All right. If we don't have anything from questions from the general public, then we can close the public hearing portion of this. So I'll entertain a motion. And remember, there's only 3 of us. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, motion's made and supported. Roll call vote. Jim Freites?
Yes.
Jim Freites says yes. Debbie Robbins?
Yes.
Debbie Robbins says yes. Kevin Demarais says yes. The public hearing portion has been closed. We've done a consensus on the other waivers that were laid out in this review letter, which is great. I love the way it's done now with the different colors, and I can understand it better. In addition to that, you are asking for the waivers relative to the roadway width, the sidewalk on one side, and the tree plantings, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Scott, you didn't have anything else to add, right?
No, I mean, you asked us to look at it for drainage.
That's it, right.
So we didn't really take a look at the cross section or anything like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. Okay, so that being said, I'll entertain a motion to grant the waivers, numbers 1 through 6 as outlined by
So moved.
environmental.
Sorry.
What's that?
I
Oh,
said,
that's
sorry,
okay.
I jumped in too fast.
Okay. That we grant the waiver requests 1 through 6 as outlined on the Environmental Department's latest review letter. In addition, that the requirements or regulations relative to road construction, cross-section, and the sidewalk, and the tree plantings, as demonstrated on the plans. Again, when we approve a plan, we're approving the plans as submitted. Oftentimes on these smaller subdivisions, the waiver request page would be longer than what the actual plan set is. So that being said, I'd entertain a motion to grant those waivers as requested.
So moved.
Second,
Motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Debbie Robbins.
Yes.
Debbie Robbins says yes. Jim Freight.
yes.
Jim Freight says yes. Kevin Damaris says yes. That passes unanimous. So all that we have left at this point in time is to vote on the actual plans that were submitted to us and approve the subdivision. I would like to point out that we did get comment from the Cemetery Commission. If you remember, there was a question relative to accessibility to the Nichols Cemetery. They have provided us an easement wording and shown on the plan, excuse me, and Niles, correct me if I go astray, that shows access, permanent access, easement access from Water Street up the road, down a property line, and then to the gate in the Nichols Cemetery, as was requested by the Cemetery Commission. And speaking with Mike McHugh, he's the chairman, and myself being on the board, we take no exception to that, and we'd like to thank the applicant for working with us to ensure that we do have permanent accessibility to maintain the veteran cemeteries out there and to keep it safe. So thank you for that. So unless there's anything else that anybody wants to add at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the plan set. What's the latest revision date, Niles?
It's, hold on, bear with me.
Hold on.
July
I'll look it up.
29th, July 29th, 2020.
Okay. Okay, so plan set dated July 29th, 2020 for the residential subdivision of land, the residences at the Assonet Inn, Assonet, Massachusetts. That we approved those plans with the aforementioned approved waiver requests. I need that motion.
So moved. So moved.
Motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Debbie Robbins.
Yes.
Debbie Robbins says yes. Jim Freight.
Yes.
Jim Freight says yes. Kevin Damaris says yes. It's unanimous. Well, okay. So that concludes the public hearing for this subdivision. So I thank you, Niles. Obviously, we have to get the approval done up. And the waiver list, Chris will type up to make sure that that's on there. Then we got to get people in here to sign the plans and all. So it may take a little bit longer time to do that, the mechanics of it. But once that's all done, Chris will be sending out an email to folks, and we can either deliver it to them if they're at home, or they can come down and sign it, and we'll get it taken care of.
And I do need to provide the board with Mylars for signing, so.
Yeah. So, town hall is open by appointment only, all walk up, but I would say to make sure, just, if you want to call us before you come down and let us know so we can make sure we're around for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. Hey, Scott,
Yes.
you still there? Hey,
Yes.
thanks a bunch, man. I know you guys have been working hard on a lot of these things, and it's tough when they're drawn out over time, but as always, we appreciate your professionalism and what you do for the town, and quite honestly, without you guys, I think we'd be a little bit lost. So
I appreciate that.
kudos to you. Thank you. Thank you very much. How's your golf game, by the way?
My golf game could always be a little bit better, but it's fine. And Sophia
There
does
you
a great
go.
job making sure we're okay out there. So
It's making sure you got enough swing oil and you're pointed in the right direction. So
that's right.
good for you. All right. Hey, enjoy the rest of your summer, Scott. I'm sure we'll be talking.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. So to finish off our meeting, I briefly talked about it earlier with Bob. But item number 7 on our agenda is discussion on the zoning articles submitted for the October special town meeting. We only have the one, Chris, is that correct? Right. And that's the one that we had started talking about before the Rona hit, and that was the bylaw for solar. And one of the biggest sticking points, and I think one of the biggest areas of concerns for some of the residential areas was the setbacks. You know, the visual effect that having such a small setbacks. Currently, they're 50-foot setbacks. And so what we've done, it's very rudimentary, keeping in mind that during the public hearing process, that can be changed, and I imagine it will be. And even on town meeting floor, it can be changed to a certain degree, and I imagine it will be. Or it could be. But if you look, what we really did was the setback areas, we've taken and we've gone by size. So off the top of my head, if it's 5 acres or less, it's got to be 100 feet. I think if it goes up to 10 acres, it's 200 feet. And then it goes up exponentially after that. Some of it might be a bit much, right? You get something over 80 feet, it might be 800, okay, or 80 acres. But it's a kickoff point, it's a starting point, it's a discussion starter. We're doing that on September 1st. We talked about, it's the only thing on the agenda right now. I'm going to try to keep it the only thing on the agenda so that we can be focused on this. We will be doing it by Zoom, I imagine. And, you know, the public will be invited. So that's where I think there might be some other changes. I will tell you that it was brought up in casual conversation that the selectmen may be considering a moratorium on solar to get a better handle on, or at least the way it was explained, with the taxing of how we tax. We were always taxing full value. It would appear that the state government doesn't see it that way and has allowed for a reduction in taxes for solar facilities. I brought this up with the town administrator several months ago and suggested that a meeting take place with the assessors, tax collectors, our financial team, selectmen, and planning board members, so that we're all making sure that we're pulling in the same direction, right? Because one of the big deals, or one of the big reasons we allowed solar in residential, was to offset the impact that we could have to local services, schools, police, fire, road plowing, trash pickup, all that stuff. So if you could just make sure you go over it, review it. If there's anything that sticks out in your mind, if there's anything that you think we should add or subtract, mark it up in red. And when we start our public hearing, we can bring those things up and we can discuss them then. But other than that, I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. I will sign off on the bills, and Chris will send out copies of them to anybody just for their review. Does anybody have anything else to add to this?
I think you did a
No.
great job, Kevin, with the first Zoom meeting.
Huh? That was something. Jesus, honest God, I'm walking around in circles, shaking back and forth. I said, holy folks, I can't possibly be on TV. So I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad you guys were able to do it. And hey, Dave, are you still there?
I am the silent member of the planning board, yes.
I love it, Dave. I didn't mention you at all because I didn't want you to get in trouble. No. you're gonna be able to vote on something one of these days, I promise you. Once Debbie gets her act together and we get her plans in, you're gonna be on standby for that one, so.
On prime time. I can't wait.
I know, we can't wait either.
Hey, Kevin, I do
All
have
right,
one,
listen.
Kevin, I do have
Yes,
one
please.
comment on a Zoom meeting. If you pull up the participants tab, there is a
Yeah.
function that you can raise your hand and lower your hand. And, you know, if it's a big meeting, it might be a way
Yeah.
of controlling the masses instead of people yelling at the same time. Can you see my
Okay,
hand?
so,
Do you see my hand waving there?
yeah, see, Dave, I'm not the administrator, Chris is, but Chris, did you
Ah.
see his hand? Yeah, we do see your hand. Okay, it's a little blue icon in the corner.
Right. So if somebody raises their
Yeah.
hand, then you could be calling them or whatever. It's just a suggestion.
Oh, wait, is Mac, oh, well, hold on, why is, not for nothing, but we have somebody on there, Macintosh. Why do they keep raising their hand? Do you have a question? Go ahead. Okay,
I don't
stop
have a
doing
question. I'm just playing.
that. Is that Tim?
Yes.
Oh, okay, Tim, thank you. You were just
I'm
showing
just
me. Okay,
waving
I
hello. That's it.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. How did we do, Tim, for our first Zoom meeting?
Not bad. Not bad.
Won't say good, but not bad. All right, guys. Hey, listen, enjoy the rest of your summer, I guess. Well, I say that. We have a meeting next week. No? Do we, Chris? We have a meeting next week. That's the continuance is for the 18th. So that would be the solar for TJA and for Mitch Kev. So we're going to do it the same way, Zoomy, and that's that. I need a motion to adjourn, folks.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn has been made and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Debbie Robbins.
Yes.
Jim Freight. Debbie Robbins says yes. Jim Freight.
Yes.
Jim Freight says yes. Kevin Damaris says yes. Thanks, guys. This concludes the meeting of the Freetown Planning Board. Again, folks, it'll be available on our YouTube channel and online for viewing. Please contact our office if you have any difficulties in accessing it. Okay. Thanks again, and the meeting is concluded.
Okay,
Have a
cheers,
good night.
thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
See ya.